Today, we're digging into something huge, a landmark report from the Meghalaya State Education Commission. This thing is basically a blueprint, a master plan to completely overhaul the state's entire education system.
And we're going to kick things off with a number that, honestly, tells a pretty powerful story. Just 41%. That's it. That's the percentage of students in Meghalaya who actually continue their education past Class 10. Let that sink in for a second. The vast majority of young people are dropping out of the system before they even get to higher secondary school. So you gotta ask, right? Why? Why are so many students being left behind? This is the big question, the central mystery that the Commission's report really tries to unravel. And believe me, it's a question that gets right to the heart of the state's future. What they found? Well, it reveals a system that's really struggling on a whole bunch of levels. Now, this commission didn't just appear out of nowhere. You've got the new state education policy from 2018, plus the national education policy in 2020. So Meghalaya was kind of at this crossroads, this critical moment where they realized, okay, we need a full, totally honest look at our entire education system. And their job was, well, it was massive. We're talking about examining everything from the very first day of kindergarten all the way up to university, and then building a real workable plan for change. The whole idea was to finally connect all the dots. So, let's get into the weeds. Where do you even start with a problem this big? Well, the report says you have to look at the very foundation of the whole system. We're talking about the actual state of the schools, especially at the elementary level. I mean, think about it. Before you can even begin to talk about great teachers or new curriculums, you need a decent place for kids to learn, right? A basic, functioning environment. And the report makes it crystal clear that for a whole lot of schools in Meghalaya, that fundamental piece of the puzzle is just missing. And when I say missing, I mean the gaps are, well, they're shocking. Get this, a staggering 95% of elementary schools in the state have no electricity. 95%. In an age of digital learning and computers, just think about what that means. And it doesn't stop there. 97% of those same schools don't even have a separate room for the headmaster. This isn't a luxury. We're talking about the most basic space needed to run a school. And when it comes to actual learning materials, the situation is just as bleak. Only 3%, just 3% of government and Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan schools have a working library. The one place that's supposed to spark a love for reading is practically non-existent. So you see, with a foundation that shaky, it's no surprise that those problems create massive hurdles down the line. When we look at higher education, the state's colleges and universities are dealing with their own huge set of challenges. Okay, so check this out because it points to a really critical disconnect. You see, colleges are enrolling a ton of students, but then when it comes time for final exams, poof, in 2024, nearly half of them, that's right, 50%, didn't even show up. This screams that something is seriously wrong, whether it's dropouts, issues with eligibility, or some other big systemic problem. The report also shows that the system is basically broken for the teachers and professors too. It's like a tale of two worlds. On one side, you have government colleges with proper rules, secure jobs, and benefits. And on the other, you have this much more unstable world of ad hoc and private colleges where staff often have no basic job security, no service rules, no retirement benefits. It's completely uneven. And for the students caught in the middle, the challenges are just everywhere you look. We're talking about labs with outdated equipment, classrooms packed to the brim, internet that barely works, and a serious shortage of professors. The very things you need for a quality education are just crumbling under the strain.
But look, crumbling buildings and old labs, that's only one part of the story. The report is really clear on this. You can't fix any of it without focusing on the people at the very heart of the system, the teachers. And this is where things get really serious, because what the report uncovers is a full-blown qualification crisis. The number itself is just stark. Across the entire state, there are 16,428 teachers who have zero professional qualifications. That's not a small number. It's a massive, massive hole in the professional skill of the people meant to be educating the next generation. And here's where it all comes full circle. This directly impacts that 41% number we started with. The report literally says that poor teaching is one of the main reasons students drop out. In some cases, it's an even bigger factor than money problems. Okay, so after all of that really sobering diagnosis, the report finally shifts gears.
It pivots to the big question, how do we fix this? And it lays out this ambitious, multi-part roadmap for reform with some pretty big changes to how education is actually delivered in Meghalaya. One of the absolute cornerstones of this plan is something called school consolidation. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Instead of having tons of tiny, underfunded schools, you merge them. You create larger, better-equipped institutions that can actually provide more resources to both the students and the teachers. And they've got a few different ideas for how to pull this off. For example, you could create composite schools that go all the way from kindergarten to class 12. Or you could use a hub-and-spoke model, where one big, well-funded school acts as a hub to support a bunch of smaller spoke schools around it. There's also the idea of school complexes, where schools in an area share resources and leadership. But it's not just about merging schools. The other recommendations are huge, too. We're talking about seriously strengthening the teacher training colleges, speeding up the hiring of qualified teachers, and integrating practical vocational skills right from class 6. And crucially, they want to create one unified management system for all schools to get rid of those unfair disparities we talked about earlier. So there you have it. The Commission has laid out a brutally honest assessment and a really bold vision for the future. Look, the challenges are just immense. We're talking about problems that have been building up for decades. But the plan, the roadmap, is finally on the table. And that leaves us with the biggest question of all. Can Meghalaya actually turn this blueprint into a new reality? Can they build an education system that truly serves every single student in the state?